Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome to episode 35 of my podcast, where today, just like we did in the last episode of the podcast, we're going to preview the next Grand Prix, and the next Grand Prix of course is the 2019 Azerbaijan Grand Prix in the old city of Baku. And yeah, we cannot wait. Of course, it's a week away, and I think we're going to have, as we normally do in Baku, a pretty chaotic race. And today we're going to preview what we think could happen in a week's time. Thank you guys for coming along. I just want to say that. And also, no matter where you're watching in the world, hopefully you're having a very good Saturday. For me, it's a Saturday afternoon. So yeah, if you're on my, say, side of the world, hopefully you're having a great Saturday afternoon. But no matter where you're on the world, hopefully you're having a great day as usual. But of course, I have to be joined by my podcast mate, as always, Nib, to preview this Grand Prix and what we think is going to happen. And Nib, how are you doing, mate, today?
I'm doing fine, as of course it's just a minute past now midnight here in Australia. But yeah, I'm doing fantastically well, and very much looking forward to previewing the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And how are you doing yourself, mate?
I'm doing very well. I've needed some time to, settle down and calm down after the last Grand Prix. You guys might have noticed it on the channel because I've only uploaded an incident analysis on Monday, which you guys, I think, liked. And also, if you haven't checked out my video about Pierre Gasly, it's in the description down below. I put that out on Thursday. But yeah, I've had a relaxing time. Just trying to recharge the batteries for the next Grand Prix in a week's time, and already I'm building towards that, and I can't wait for that next Grand Prix. But now let's just go straight into it and go through all the teams, and we'll start, of course, at the top and start off with Mercedes. Now, Mercedes have had 3 consecutive 1-2 finishes in 2019, and I know it seems as though they are dominating. In terms of results in the Grand Prix, yes. But in terms of speed, they're not massively clear in the way people think they are. Ferrari aren't, miles behind. They were in Australia, but they weren't in Bahrain. In Bahrain, Ferrari were actually quicker. And then in Shanghai, Ferrari were definitely slower, but they were not miles behind the top team, Mercedes. So going into this Grand Prix, I think Mercedes are going to be confident, especially with the middle sector of this track, where I think they're going to do very well compared to Ferrari. Hopefully Ferrari can improve their car aerodynamically, as we'll get on to soon. But I think definitely they're going to be super confident going into this Grand Prix. Whether they'll win or not, it's really tough to say, because I honestly do think between them and Ferrari, it's going to be very, very close. I don't think there's going to be, say, a clear gap between one team down to the other. I don't think we're going to have a quarter of a second or a half a second or a 3/4 of a second gap at the top. I think it will be very close, and even though, yes, they are probably the favourites going into Baku because of how well they've started 2019, I wouldn't be, absolutely sure that they're going to go into Baku and stamp their authority on that weekend like they did in Shanghai and Melbourne. I wouldn't be sure about that, as we'll get onto later with Ferrari. But Nib, with Mercedes, it's going to be a tight weekend, I think, with them and Ferrari. I think it's going to be close from practice 1 all the way until the end of the Grand Prix. But going into the weekend, because of the way the season has started, you'd have to say, confidence-wise, even if they don't have the best car, it's hard, isn't it, to really doubt them going for the win or getting the win.
Well, 3 1-2 finishes out of 3 races, so Mercedes are full of confidence. They didn't have the quickest car, of course, in Bahrain. Ferrari did, but they got the result, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Um, but in terms of pace and who will win, it's very difficult to predict because, as we've seen, from track to track, it differs. And at this track, even though there are a lot of long straights, which definitely favours Mercedes, there are a lot of slow corners, which is Ferrari's Achilles heel, where Mercedes pick up all of the time back on Ferrari and their other competitors. So Mercedes will definitely be strong around here. They're going to be strong at every track, that's for sure. They are the class of the field in terms of being competitive at every single race nearly possible. So for Mercedes next weekend, I think they will certainly be looking for that win. And I think you have to put them down as favourites, even though that Ferrari might have the quicker car. I still trust Mercedes ultimately more to get that result than Ferrari. So I do think that Ferrari might have a little edge on them next weekend, but we thought that going into China, and look what happened in China. Mercedes were dominant, where they were very comfortable in throughout the race. Lewis Hamilton was by himself. Bottas was comfortable in second the whole race as well. It was quite a comfortable race for them in China. So I think Mercedes have the momentum, they have the confidence, and I think they have everything they need to go and get that result for their team.
Yeah, I think pace-wise, I think they will be slightly behind Ferrari, but again, I do stress, I think it will be very close, especially in qualifying. I think the top four, Vettel, Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, could be separated by as little as a tenth or a tenth and a half. I honestly think they're going to be that close. But yeah, pace-wise, I think Mercedes, I think they will be slightly behind. But in the Grand Prix, it's going to take someone brave to bet against them, because they've just been so relentless in the way they've got the 1-2 finishes. They're such a great team. They're easily the best team in Formula One. Way better than their main competitors, Ferrari. And yeah, it's very hard to bet against them. But I'll get onto, by the way, and we will get onto our predictions for Baku later on. But yes, it's hard to see them not coming out looking, again, very great and successful in Baku. Now, let's go on to Ferrari, who, of course, are now recovering from what was a very, very disappointing weekend in Shanghai, only finishing in 3rd and 5th and qualifying on the 2nd row of the grid when they were expecting probably to get pole position. Very disappointing for Ferrari, but now we move on to Baku, and I think Baku, despite the middle sector, because the 1st and 3rd sectors are dominated by straights and you need the most amount of power you need to be great in those sectors, I think Ferrari will be better here in Baku, or say closer to Mercedes here in Baku than they were in Shanghai. The middle sector, though, I think they have to try and improve when it comes to the aero of the car, because if it continues to be a massive issue for them and they just don't get the car nailed down to this track, especially in that middle sector, they might give away enough time that they won't be able to claw it back on the straights. So in the middle sector, they've got to try and maximize the car's ability through there, because I think when it comes to outright power, I think Ferrari have Mercedes beat in terms of that. But in terms of cornering, grip, and overall mechanical grip, I guess, I just don't think Ferrari have that kind of car that can compete, in high aerodynamic or slow speed corners. So in that sector, it's going to be tough for Ferrari, but because of the 1st and 3rd sectors, I think Ferrari are going to be slightly faster. Whether they'll convert that into pole position and a race win, that's really tough to see, because as we've seen in 2018 and at the beginning of 2019, Ferrari aren't exactly great at getting the best result they can with the car and how quick it actually is. So they should, I think, compete for pole and the win. Whether they'll get it or not, I don't know. Nib, do you think they'll get pole position and get the race win? Do you think they can have a car that is quick enough to do that, or do you think, once again, like we saw in Shanghai, they're going to disappoint when it comes to getting that?
I'm not particularly sure. to be honest, with the Ferrari, but we have had some news from the last couple of days from Maranello that they are bringing upgrades for this race in Baku, some small aero upgrades. So maybe that might fix some of their issues that they've been having in the mid and slow speed corners, which has been where Mercedes have been gaining a lot of time on them. That those upgrades were supposed to be coming in Barcelona, but they've been fast tracked now to Baku, so that could help out Ferrari, and that's why I'm not really sure what's gonna happen here at Baku. You know, Ferrari had the pace on Mercedes last year, but after the crazy chaos and poor strategy by Ferrari, Mercedes were able to pick up the victory, of course. But one thing that we saw in Baku last year was that the tires were quite hard to switch on, and that Ferrari were able to switch on the tires a little bit better than Mercedes were last year. But now with how the tires are made this year, it's a lot harder to maintain that balance. And I think we did see in Bahrain that Ferrari was slightly better at switching on the tire compared to Mercedes. But that's at that track. It could be completely different when it comes to Baku, but that could be a thing to watch out for. Say if there is a safety car in the Grand Prix next weekend. So I think just little small things like that could be quite pivotal in who potentially gets the race in Baku next weekend. And I think it very well could be Ferrari. It's certainly going to be close between them and Mercedes.
And also, I want to make this point, and I'm sure Nib, you'll echo this as well. Ferrari have to 1,000,000%. They have to win this Grand Prix if they want to have any realistic chance of winning the World Championship. They have to, because if they don't win here, considering we then have Spain and Monaco where Ferrari, if you look at their history, they're not amazing at those tracks. They've been good, but not amazing at those tracks. If they don't win in Baku, I honestly... I know it might be too early to say, but considering how the season has gone so far and who is likely to win this Grand Prix, if Ferrari don't win, it's going to be Mercedes who wins. I don't think Red Bull have a realistic chance of winning the Grand Prix, as I'll get onto in a moment. But yeah, if Ferrari don't win and Mercedes win, I don't see how Ferrari possibly have a chance of the championship. I don't see it, because confidence-wise, they'll be rock bottom when it comes to that. Then they're going to have to try and improve the car. It doesn't take, it's not going to take day and, it's not going to take all season to fix this car. I think the issues are not as bad as maybe people think, but they do need fixing, and it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's probably going to take, a big upgrade here or there. But yeah, if they don't win in Baku and Mercedes win, I don't see how Ferrari can win the championship. So if Ferrari want 2019 to be a successful season, they have to win in Baku, because if they don't, then championship wise, I think honestly it's over, and I think they'll be in the constructors probably fighting more so with Red Bull. And in the Drivers' Championship, well, it's going to be Lewis Hamilton's or Valtteri Bottas's World Championship. Most likely Lewis Hamilton. So this race for the championship is so crucial. So crucial. They have to go out there and get the win. But I think now we'll move on to Red Bull, who I mentioned a minute ago. Of course, last year Baku was terrible, with Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo having a crash. That's not going to happen again, because that would require Pierre Gasly being on the same level as Max Verstappen, which we've seen in 2019 has not been the case. So yeah, I think Red Bull pace-wise, I just don't see how they can possibly compete with Ferrari and Mercedes. I think in the middle sector, they'll have a good car, but in the first and third sector, they just won't be able to compete. And if you look historically, I know they won in 2017, but that was because we had a crazy Grand Prix. Pace-wise, Red Bull have never been quick here. They've never been quick. There's been some races where they've not even had the third best car at this track. I think 2017, I'd say Force India had a better car than them. They've never really had that quick of a car around this track, and I don't see that dramatically being different this year. I know they've got a different engine supply, but I don't see it being different in 2019. And I think the best they can hope for, if the top 4 drivers, Vettel, Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, finish, is 5th and 6th. And then hope for unreliability or crashes ahead, which we know can happen in Baku, if they want to get a podium or even more. But yeah, pace-wise, Nib, not really a surprise. I don't think Red Bull can really compete for a podium pace-wise or even a race win. What do you think?
I'm not really sure where Red Bull really are at yet. Max Verstappen is obviously doing a tremendous job, as he always does, and I must say this picture on screen is hurting my heart massively. I don't like getting reminded of this awful moment last year, but with Red Bull, of course, Gasly is miles off the pace. Like, he's nearly a second off Verstappen on one lap pace, which is just an absolute joke. I was copying a little bit of flack last year when Gasly got announced at Red Bull, that saying that he would get out qualified at every race by Verstappen by half a second. Well, it's been even more than that so far this season, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I think Red Bull will be a little bit closer this weekend than what they were in China. I think this track suits them actually a little bit more. The not the championship, the straights won't hurt them as much as what they did last year. Of course, they had to sacrifice and not run as much wing to not lose out as much in the straights. And with that Honda in the back of the Red Bull, I think they'll actually have a pretty good weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if Max Verstappen finds himself amongst a Mercedes or a Ferrari at the front. And then Pierre Gasly will be about 30 or 40 seconds behind, of course. But I don't know with Red Bull. They're having a few issues with a narrow setup window, with a few aero issues. It's very weird for Red Bull to predict where they're going to be. I think they're bringing upgrades for Barcelona with some aero little parts. But I really don't know where Red Bull will be. But they'll certainly be third. I don't think they'll be fourth or anything like that. But I think Max will have a good weekend, and Gasly will be absolutely miles off the pace.
Yeah, I think Gasly, to be honest, if we get a very quick team in the midfield, maybe an Alfa Romeo, or even a Haas in, say, qualifying, I don't think Pierre Gasly...
Renault.
Yeah, even Renault. Or Racing Point, because Racing Point, let's remember their history around this track. I mean, they've had, 2 podiums in the 3 races here, so... You never know, Gasly could end up starting on the back end of the top 10 or outside the top 10. But yeah, with Red Bull, the feeling I get with them is that they don't quite have that much confidence in this car like they did with their car at the end of 2018, where I think they had so much confidence in their car, they just knew what they were going to be like at that Grand Prix and knew they could push to the absolute extreme. I think with this car so far this year, they don't quite know what they have yet. And I think that's why maybe their results for both drivers have been not maybe as good as they were hoping for. Even though, of course, Max finished third in Melbourne, I think at the start of 2019 after testing, I think Red Bull were probably hoping for a better, say, points haul after the first 3 races. So, yeah, I think Red Bull, I think if Barcelona, they get the upgrades that are needed for that car and they work on the car and, step it up a level and get the team confident in what they have with their car, then I think after Barcelona, they'll be fine. And then, of course, we have Monaco, where I expect Red Bull to be right there for pole and the win, especially with Max Verstappen. So I think Red Bull eventually will be fine. As we know, they develop the best out of any team in Formula 1. So I think they'll be fine eventually, probably in a race or two's time. But yeah, in Baku, I get the feeling, honestly, that they might be closer to the top of the midfield than the top 2 teams. But we'll see in Baku how close they can really get. But before I go on to the midfield, Let's now hear from you guys in the live chat, and if you're watching this after the stream has finished, comment down below what have you thought of what we've had to say about the top 3 teams and how we think they're going to do in Baku. For Mercedes, do you think they are the favourites going into this Grand Prix? Do you think, like me, that Ferrari have to win this Grand Prix to save their championship hopes? And for Red Bull, what chances do you give them of maybe a podium or something like that? Let me know in the comments, and also the live chat right now, and I'll read out as many comments as I can for the next 5 minutes or so. But I just want to say to you guys, don't forget to subscribe for more podcast episodes like this, and also all the content coming up on the channel next weekend for, of course, the 2019 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So make sure to subscribe for that on the bottom right of the screen, or click on my channel name, go to the homepage, subscribe, and very importantly, hit the notifications bell. But let me now read what you guys have to say, and then we'll go on to the midfield. And also, because I don't think some Australians out there, including Nib, want to watch this or look at this picture, I'll just move on to this. Because yeah, there you go. Right, let's read out some comments, shall we? Let me find the start of this. Xlong Lexus says, it's a long way to the championship on both fronts. It can only take one DNF and the standings will change completely. It's too early to write off Ferrari. I'm not writing them off right now, but also, if you look at the history of Formula One, when 2 top teams are going head-to-head for the championship, it's quite rare that one team wins the first 4 races and the other team really strikes back massively against that top team, or really, competes for the championship at all. So I think also history is against Ferrari if they let Mercedes win again in Baku. So that's also why I say that they have to win Baku, because historically it's very rare that a second team, the team behind in the championship, has come roaring back into the title fight. Prussia says, I hope for a good race in the midfield. Annette says, Ferrari have to step up. Red Bull could be in there. I would never write off Max's ability. Yeah, Max is, he's a great driver and very quick, but at the end of the day, you need also the car to complement your driving skill. And I don't think in Baku he will quite have enough, of an overall car to compete seriously for a podium or a race winner. I hope I am surprised, because I'd love to see a top 3 battle, but I don't think Red Bull will be that great.
And let's not forget, he is 3rd in the championship, still ahead of Leclerc and Vettel somehow. So, well, kudos to our Max on that for sure.
I think his start to 2019 has gone quite under the radar. He hasn't, except for spinning on the the lap after the Bahrain Grand Prix finished, and on the formation lap in Shanghai. He hasn't really done anything wrong, and has just got the best out of the car and done all he could have done so far, I think. Gasly, of course, has not. Yes, he says he's struggling with the car, but I think he could do better than be a second slower than his teammate. Max is better than Pierre Gasly, there's no doubting that, but it shouldn't be... The gap should not be that big. But yeah, Max still in 3rd in the championship. It is quite surprising, but I think that points to how Ferrari continue to blow results on race day, but also how Max, you can never really massively write him off. I mean, look at Brazil last year. I didn't think Red Bull had a chance of winning in Brazil, and well, without the whole Ocon incident, Max would have easily won that Grand Prix. So yeah, Max has had a great start to 2019. If he gets a car that can compete at the top more consistently than he has so far, then he could end up being the closest competitor to Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas in the Drivers' Championship. You never know, but we'll see. Let me just find the comment I was about to read out. I think Jeffrey Guyot says, Mercedes have been holding back performance in my opinion. Toto wasn't happy with Lewis and his engineer going for the fastest lap. Combo of health of the power unit and keeping their cars close. I don't think they're holding back performance. I think, they're not sandbagging the early races. I think that's ridiculous. They're pushing as much as they can without, of course, destroying their car, but everyone's doing that. In the Grand Prix, it's quite rare in the Grand Prix that you will see a car being maxed out in terms of fuel, engine power, tyres, and driving. The only times you really get to see the cars at their absolute fastest is qualifying, maybe a couple times in practice in terms of the driver pushing as hard as he can. But in terms of the whole car being at its absolute fastest, you only get to see that in qualifying. All the teams tend to conserve their car, especially in the Grand Prix, so I don't think that's anything really new. Right, I'll read out probably one more comment and then we'll go on to the midfield, a stacked midfield, which I think is going to be very hard to predict at this Grand Prix. Let me just find another comment if I can. Motorsport Tube, I'll read this one out. He says, I wouldn't be surprised if Verstappen gets a podium in Azerbaijan because crazy race can occur. Absolutely. Baku is, I'm not going to throw it out there absolutely 100%, but it's kind of becoming the new Canada in terms of unpredictability. It's kind of becoming like Canada, but we've only had 3 races at Baku, so I'm not going to absolutely 100% say it is the new version of Canada. But
don't forget the first race was rubbish.
Yeah, this is the thing. The first race was terrible, but I think judging the first race as all the track has, I think was a bit silly in the first place, to be honest. 2017, 2018 were great. I do understand people saying that safety cars played a lot into that, but I could also say the same about Canada. At Canada, plenty of races there have been made exciting by safety cars. There's also plenty of races there that have been made exciting just on their own, but I think just the nature of Baku, that's what makes it exciting, and it kind of does remind me at times of Canada with how close the walls are and how close the margin of error is at this track. But we'll now go on to the midfield and start off with Renault. Renault, pace-wise, I think had their first properly very good weekend in Shanghai. The race result was not as good as they were hoping for, and it should have been better. They should have got really 7th and 8th in the Grand Prix. Even though Hülkenberg was dropping back, I think Renault were a bit disappointed not to have that kind of result because I think they needed that boost. But still, Ricciardo finishing P7, so a good points haul compared, of course, to the disaster of Bahrain. But going into Baku, what can Renault do? I think Renault, it's tough to say because, and this is what's so great about the midfield, is you don't know who's going to turn up and have an especially good weekend or a better weekend than expected or not be as good as expected. Looking at the midfield, my feeling for Renault is they're going to be 9th, 10th, 11th kind of area. I don't think they'll be as far up as they were in Shanghai. I don't think they'll be 7th and 8th. Because again, I just don't think their car is as suited to this track as Shanghai is. So I think they won't be as good as they were in Shanghai, but I still think they'll be very competitive for the points and probably the top 10 in qualifying. But yeah, the feeling I get for Renault in terms of what position they'll be in is P9, P10, P11, somewhere around there. I don't think they're going to be, getting up there in P6 or P7, I just don't think the car will be quite that quick. Nib, do you think Renault could be, say, best of the rest in the midfield, or do you think, like me, that they're probably going to be back end of the points, probably at worst just outside the points?
Actually, I think Daniel Ricciardo is going to win the Grand Prix. I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. Before everyone gets riled up, I'm joking. Calm down. But I do actually think Renault will be best of the rest next weekend. They were really good in Baku last year, of course, until Hulkenberg hit the wall, and then the safety car caused some issues with Sainz. I can't remember exactly what happened to Sainz.
Finished in 5th, I think.
I did. Oh, he did actually get a good result. That's right. It was just very hard to remember everything that happened after the safety car restart in that race last year. But Renault were quite good here in Baku last year. They might be a little bit behind in qualifying, as Renault do tend to be, but it's a track where you can overtake, and Renault do seem to have the best race pace out of anyone in the midfield. So I'm actually quite confident that Renault can have a good result in Baku. But of course, for the last race, they brought all new MG UKs, and after about 12 laps, Hulkenberg's failed. So typical Renault engine stuff going on there. But hopefully, Renault can sort out their reliability that they're having with their MG UK, because that has been their Achilles heel all throughout this turbo hybrid era. It's always been the MG UK which has been causing them issues, always been the cause of most of their retirements. So hopefully Renault can get that sorted out, and can get once again a very strong finish like they did last time out in China, of course, with Daniel Ricciardo getting 7th place ahead of not Hulkenberg, ahead of Perez and Raikkonen.
Yeah, I think qualifying, I don't think Renault will be that great in qualifying. I agree with you. I think Renault do have the best race pace car, but I kind of feel as though they might be a bit more, say, under threat when it comes to, say, overtaking on the pit straight, because, I mean, we've seen at Baku, we've seen plenty of times slipstream fests down to turn 1, and because you've got teams with great straight line speed such as Alpha, Haas, Racing Point, even Toro Rosso, sometimes Renault in
last weekend.
True, but I don't know. I just don't see them having one of those, great weekend. I just don't see it. I think if there's a chaotic race, I think Renault will probably get a good result, but pace-wise, I just don't see them being as good as they were in Shanghai. I think once we get to Spain and Monaco, I think Renault will be absolutely fine there. But Baku, I'm not too sure about that, but we'll see. In Baku, next up is McLaren in China. McLaren were terrible in terms of pace in the race. The race pace wasn't too bad, but of course after the start they were never going to be able to show it. By the way, some of these pictures are from last year, just want to stress that. Of course, Alonso is not driving for McLaren anymore. But yeah, McLaren I think will be better here than Shanghai, because I just think Shanghai, they just didn't seem to really have the pace, and also they weren't really that lucky in that whole Grand Prix weekend. I mean, in qualifying, I don't think the drivers did the absolute best laps they could have, and also in the Grand Prix, as we saw, the race pace was actually quite good, but they just didn't have a chance to show it because of what happened on the first lap with the torpedo Daniel Kvyat. So I think in Baku, the result will be better for McLaren, and I think pace-wise they will be better. Not massively better, but I think they will be better than they were in Shanghai. Nib, for McLaren, do you think they're going to respond to what was in terms of a result, and really pace-wise, a mediocre weekend in China?
Yeah, I think McLaren will be better here in Baku. Of course, Alonso had that double puncture, which of course we're seeing a picture on screen. Hit the ball in the pit lane coming in, and still got points somehow. So I think once again this year McLaren will get points during the Grand Prix. I think they struggled quite a bit in the fast speed corners in China. I didn't quite have a chance to look at any data to back that up. So if anyone has data to prove me wrong, please present it. That would be great. But I think they're good in a straight line. They seem to be quite solid in the slower speed corners. So I think it will be quite a good weekend for McLaren. You know, quite a disappointing weekend in China. They never had the pace really all weekend. Um, we didn't really get to truly see what their race pace was like, of course, after that incident on the first lap with Kvyat. Um, but I think McLaren will be stronger here in Baku. I just think that I have a funny feeling that they will do quite well and maybe get a double points finish, even perhaps. Who knows? Because they seem to have a sold race car.
Can I ask you this? Because I've kind of wondered this. Of course, last year McLaren had a drag problem. Now, in Bahrain, which out of the first three races is probably the most power circuit-esque track, that was their best performance. Do you think McLaren have kind of gone not too much the other way, but do you think they've really solved that drag problem? And do you think that's why, say, Baku will probably be better for them, and also that's why Bahrain was so good for them? I don't know. That's kind of a theory I've had. Do you kind of see what I'm thinking there?
Yes, yeah, I understand what you mean. I think they have fixed that drag issue which they've had that which they had last year. They've got rid of that, and of course, it's been very helpful with that with the Renault power unit actually being a lot better performance wise than what it was last year. And I think that's really helped McLaren become quicker in straight lines because that's actually where they are gaining some time on the other midfield teams is in a straight line. That's why I did mention Renault when you talk about teams that are fast in a straight line because everyone in the midfield is actually relatively close in terms of in terms of straight line speed performance.
Hmm.
So I think McLaren have certainly figured out that drag issue that they were hampered by in qualifying, um, certainly last year.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think last year at times they were having to do slipstreaming to try and get one of their cars maybe into the top 10 or even out of Q1. Yeah, I think with McLaren, as I just said, I think that's the one thing we can notice with the 2019 car is that they have fixed their issue with the increased drag. And I think because of that, because of how they got on in Bahrain with the straights there, I think they will, in Baku, I think they will be better than they were in Shanghai. But now let's go on to Alfa Romeo. Here's another damaged car from last year. Plenty of accidents last year, of course. Alfa Romeo, I thought in Shanghai had a great result with Kimi Räikkönen P9. And I think results like that could contribute towards a very successful season for the team. Going into this Grand Prix, though, I think Alfa Romeo, not with both cars, of course, because Antonio Giovinazzi will probably again struggle to get out of Q1. But with Raikkonen, I think Kimi Raikkonen is going to be right up there, say P7, P8. I honestly think that because the Alpha car should be better suited to this track. I think Shanghai didn't quite suit, say, the characteristics of their car. I think Baku more so suits the characteristics of their car. Not massively, but again, more so suits their car. And I think with Kimi Räikkönen, I think they're going to be very quick. Again, with Kimi Räikkönen. And if we do get a chaotic race in Baku, which of course we are hoping for, with the way Kimi Räikkönen is, where he just tends to miss the trouble and capitalise on it, you never know. Kimi Räikkönen could end up with a P6 or even a P5 if we have enough chaos. So I think they're going to be quick. I think Kimi Räikkönen is going to be very quick. And by the way, I just want to shout out Kimi again because I think Kimi Räikkönen has been one of the best drivers so far in 2019. He is doing so well with that car. and, well, is obviously the reason why they're joint fourth in the Constructors' Championship. And I think he has done so well. And I think he will do very well again in Baku. And I'm hoping they do, with Kimi, have, say, the performance or the pace that I'm expecting right now. Because if they do, and they can take the fight to Renault or Haas or whoever's right there with them, or maybe just ahead of them, then yeah, I think Baku is going to be a very successful weekend. Nib, do you think Alpha will be better at this race in terms of speed? And also, I just want to ask, do you think also, like me, that Kimi Räikkönen has been one of the best drivers in 2019 so far?
I definitely think he has. Kimi has been superb all season long. So certainly replicating what he was producing certainly most of last season. He could have been on pole several times last season, and of course he won at the United States Grand Prix. Kimi's just going from strength to strength, where there's less focus on him in the Alfa Romeo team. But I'm gonna say pretty much what I said in the last preview for the Chinese Grand Prix. I think Kimi will get points once again, and I think he will get into Q3 this time. Sadly, his streak of, I think, 53 or 54 consecutive Q3 appearances, um, that streak will begin again with a Q3 entry, this time out in Baku. But I also do see him certainly getting a good bag of points. That the Alpha should be more suited to this track, and Kimi just is certainly delivering the goods at the moment. Of course, he doesn't have much of a teammate to come up against at the moment in Antonio Giovinazzi, who I do feel kind of sorry for, because he hasn't driven a single seater car for 2 years, and he's just been thrown straight into the deep end. Of course, in these cars, I never thought he was actually the greatest driver in GP2. Of course, Gasly got sent off to Super Formula because of how close Giovinazzi was to Gasly in F2 that season. So I don't rate Giovinazzi that much. Never had. I thought you were being a bit harsh on him, because he did have certainly a good debut in Melbourne when he had to replace Pascal Wehrlein, who had his little injury at the Race of Champions. But he's certainly been quite poor so far this season, has Giovinazzi, and he needs to start delivering. Otherwise, he could be out the door come season's end. Of course, it's very early to be saying anything like that. He could turn it around, and I hope he does, in fact, because he seems like quite a nice lad. But I certainly think Kimi will get a good points finish here. But sadly, Giovinazzi, once again, I don't think he will get any points this weekend, next weekend, for Alfa Romeo in Baku.
Yeah, Giovinazzi, I know he had issues with, I think qualifying. He had the same issue as Leclerc had in Bahrain. But I think the race again in Shanghai proved why, for me, I just don't think he's good enough. Look at where Carlos Sainz finished. Carlos Sainz, I know there was a virtual safety car, so Carlos Sainz didn't lose as much time as he would have if there wasn't a virtual safety car. But Carlos Sainz pitted for a new front wing, and Giovinazzi continued, and I think maybe got up to, I don't know, P16, P15, but Sainz was quite a bit behind, and Carlos Sainz still beat Giovinazzi. So I think, again, yeah, his weekend wasn't absolutely smooth, and he did have issues, but in the Grand Prix, you know, I don't think there's any real excuse for him. Look at Albon. He had his car completely rebuilt, and he finished in the points. So, yeah, I don't think Giovinazzi should really be given too many excuses at the moment. And, yeah, Baku, I just don't see how he can possibly do that well. I think Baku, the only thing that's going to work for him is, I think he has raced here before in GP2, so maybe that'll be something that he can carry into that weekend. But yeah, I'm not feeling Giovinazzi, to be honest. But we'll move on from Alpha and go on to Haas. Haas are really struggling at the moment. That's now 2 races, Bahrain and Shanghai, where they have not scored any points. And after Australia, we would not have thought that at all, where they had the best car in the midfield by a mile. Yeah, Haas, it's all down to tyres. It's all down to, can they warm them up, or can they not wear them out as much as they are right now in Shanghai? I believe the issue in the race was, or they're coming out and saying that when it comes to tyre warm up, they've noticed that it is a long straight. Then if it's followed after a slow corner, they struggle with tyre temperature or something like that. That's something I saw in the news during the week. But also, the biggest area where they're struggling, without a doubt, is tyre wear. They have the worst tyre wear, I think, in Formula One. It's that bad. And in Baku, I don't see it being any better, because even though street tracks are they're not normally known for wearing out tyres massively, say compared to purpose-built racetracks like Bahrain, China, Catalonia, tracks like that, Hungary. This track still can be, especially in terms of warming the tyres up or keeping them from being worn out massively. I still think they're going to struggle when it comes to that, because at Baku, if you're struggling, and this is another thing, if you're struggling with tyre wear at Baku, you will get exposed massively, because as soon as you accelerate out of the final, what is really braking zone on the track, and then you come to that very, very long straight which comes onto the pit straight, you're going to get passed by everyone. So I think Haas are going to struggle again. I think in qualifying, they'll probably get a car into the top 10, not say 7th or 8th, but I think they'll maybe sneak a car into 10th, something like that. But in the race, I'm going to call it now, unless there's chaos, I don't see how they can finish in the points. And knowing them, if there is chaos, they'll be causing it. So I just don't see how Haas can score points. And it's a shame to say that, because after Australia, I was really hoping that they could, say, avenge what happened last year and get 4th place in the Constructors. But Nib, really, for Haas, you'd have to say after the last 2 races, it's kind of falling apart, isn't it?
It's sort of falling apart for Haas. In qualifying in China, of course, they were very good. They got both cars into Q3.
Oh, hold on a minute. For some reason, you've gone really robotic. I don't know why. Oh, voice. Sorry. If anyone's wondering, basically, we record. Oh, not record, but we do these podcasts through Discord, and annoyingly, the voice connection in Discord has dropped to red, to a 1 bar, which is very annoying. So hold on a minute, Nib. I'll just jump out of the call, then I'll come back. Hold on. Sorry about this, guys, but this does happen. You guys will know that we do have issues with this. So yeah, we'll bring him on in just a moment and finally, hopefully, get his thoughts on what is actually... Are you there, Nib?
Hello, I think I'm good again.
Yep, I think you are. Go again in case it goes again.
Yes. So what I was saying was that Haas, yeah, the fact, of course, they are very good in Australia. We've seen that even from the debut season where they got 6th, I think it was, in Australia. But since it's kind of gone downhill in qualifying, they were very good in China. They got both cars again into 3. But sadly, they just weren't able to continue in the race, and who were tire.
Hold on. It's gone. Oh, this is so annoying. It's going robotic again. Sorry about this, guys.
Just move on. Just move on.
Shall I move on? Yeah, this is very annoying. Basically, again, we've had these issues before when it comes to Discord. Basically, if you guys are experienced with Discord, you guys will know that Discord doesn't have the best voice connection sometimes. Normally, with us, it's absolutely fine. But at the moment, it's just not working for some reason. Now it's back. It keeps jumping all over the place. So I think Right, we'll move on then. We'll go on to the next team if we can. We'll go on to Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso, they've been a bit weird this season. The first 3 races have been kind of... They've had pace, but they've not ever really had great pace. They've kind of always been in there, right in the heart of the midfield, nicking a point here or there. They've never had stunning pace. They've never had really bad pace. They've always been just kind of just in there fighting away as they normally do. And I think they will kind of be that way here in Baku. I don't think they will be as good here as they were last weekend in Shanghai. I think they'll be more so 12th, 13th, even 14th. But I think on race day, I think Toro Rosso could easily again nick a point if we have crazy battles in the midfield and maybe some chaos ahead. They could easily score points again. But pace-wise, I think Toro Rosso most likely will probably be, say, where they were qualifying wise in Bahrain, which I think was 12th and 14th or something like that, or 12th and 15th. That's kind of what I expect for Toro Rosso in Baku. And I'm going to try and come to you again, Nib. With Toro Rosso, what do you see for them?
Well, they've got a point in every single race so far this season. Did they get a point in Australia? I can't remember.
Yeah, they did. They got P10 with Kvyat.
Well, there you go. They've got a point in every single race so far this season, which I didn't quite expect from Toro Rosso. And with potentially some chaos happening on the streets around Baku, who knows? They could once again get into the points. Of course, Albon had an amazing race last time out in China, coming from the pit lane to get P10, a superb drive, and once again showing that he has been very good at the tyre wear management. He was great in Bahrain at doing that, and once again great in China. And thank the Lord that Discord has actually sorted itself out for the time being. But yeah, it seems like Toro Rosso have actually pretty strong and certainly have a good race car. They might not be there in qualifying, but in the race, I think they're pretty reliable. And if Kvyat doesn't get himself into trouble once again on the first lap, they could once again have a points finish, could Toro Rosso. So I think we might see Toro Rosso just sneak a point once again.
Famous final words, but I think Discord now is working. But do you just want to summarize what you were going to say about Haas?
Yes, indeed. Well, the main thing that I was going to get with Haas, English helps. That's for sure. But in Baku, it's very hard to keep those temperature in the tires, and if that's what they're struggling with, it's going to be really, really bad in Baku, because when the race has taken place in that afternoon, the sun goes behind all of the buildings, of course, around the city of Baku, and it makes the track actually quite cool and very hard to warm up the tires. Mercedes struggled with it to a degree last season, and once again, Haas could struggle with it once again this year. So that was kind of the main point that I was going to make there with Haas, and I don't think that they will get in the points, actually. I think they might get it both into Q3, but I'm not too sure about them getting points because of their tire and the issues with they're having with these new tires and the tire temperatures, indeed.
I think Discord right at the very end tried to cut you off there. It's like a curse with Haas, and yeah, it's the voice connection's gone down again. So I think got a curse with Haas. So I think again you're probably gonna have to do what you did again, try and jump out and jump back in again. But I think we've got a bit of a curse there for Haas. Maybe they're not too pleased with what we think of them. But Haas, as we said, it's all about tyres. For Toro Rosso, and I think Nib said, they could definitely sneak a points finish. Now let's go on to Racing Point, who of course last year as Force India got a great podium, 3rd place. They actually finished on the podium 2 times in the first and only so far 3 races in Baku. And this is probably their best track on the entire calendar in terms of historical performance. So I think Racing Point, and with the way they're developing the car and the way Perez was in China, especially in qualifying in the Grand Prix, I think Racing Point are going to be very strong in the midfield. I'm hesitating to say that they're going to be, say, the best midfield team, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. Say with Perez. With Stroll, not so much, because as we know, Stroll, when it comes to qualifying, isn't all there. When it comes to the races, he's a bit better, but there you go. But yeah, with Perez and Racing Point's history at this track, I think they're going to be good. I think they will be good. I think they've got, basically, because of the way they have been at this track, I think they're guaranteed a points finish. Most likely with Sergio Pérez. But yeah, I think, again, historically, we can't really count them out, can we, Racing Point? They've just done so well at this track. Nib, for Racing Point, as I said, historically great at this track. Do you think that'll continue this, or not this weekend, next weekend in Baku?
I'm really not sure with Racing Point. It's very hard to tell exactly where they are. I think they're still trying to develop and understand their new car. Of course, Sergio Perez, kudos to him for his first lap in China. It was absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it will be floating around on Reddit or Twitter somewhere. And if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, because he made a fantastic start. Got himself up into P8, and I think he started in 12th. So fantastic there by Perez, but I don't really know if they actually have the outright pace in the car to get a good result here in Baku. Of course, historically they've been good, but with the new aero rules and with the new tires, I don't think you can really go on history, really. And I think it's been proven already so far this season that you can't really go on what we've had in previous years. So I'm really not too sure with Racing Point. I don't think Lance Stroll will be fantastic again. Of course, he did get a podium here many moons ago. Well, it wasn't many moons ago, but not 2 years ago, I think it was. But I'm not. I think he'll get knocked out in Q1 again, as he always seems to do. Although every now and then he pops up with a great qualifying performance, especially in the wet. He's a very good driver in the wet, is Mr. Stroll. But Perez, I think he will be on the verge of points. Whether or not he gets points, I'm not entirely sure. But I think it's going to be a general rule for the whole season. The midfield is going to be incredibly close, and those battle for the last couple of points is going to be very close. So I think Perez will be in and amongst that battle, but whether or not he gets those points, we'll have to see next weekend.
Yep, we will. And I'm telling you, it's a curse with Haas, because it's only dropped out when we've been talking about Haas. So we're not going to talk about them any more, I think, in this podcast. And then Williams, who cares, to be honest. But I will say, again, historically, as you said, though, we shouldn't really pay massive attention to history based on what we've seen so far this season. But historically, this does tend to be good for them. So they'll probably be a bit closer to other teams, but still, back row of the grid. But now, let's get on to the predictions for Baku, for the top 3 in qualifying and the Grand Prix. I'll go first. So, I think, in qualifying, Charles Leclerc will get pole position for Ferrari from Lewis Hamilton in second, and Sebastian Vettel in third. I also think Valtteri Bottas will be very close in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got into the top 2, but I think Leclerc will get pole position, and I am going to be brave and say that Charles Leclerc will win his first ever Grand Prix in Baku. Baku, as we know, is one of his best tracks in Formula 1. It's also a very emotional place for him, because I believe he won here just days after his father died in Formula 2. Last year, Indeed. Of course, finished in 6th for Sauber. I think that was probably the best result he had last year for Sauber. So I think Charles Leclerc will win, because he is so good at this track. And I think he's really pumped up after what happened in Shanghai. He's really pumped up to go out there and get the win. In second place, I'm going to go Lewis Hamilton. And then in third, I will go for Valtteri Bottas, I think. So there you go. I think Charles Leclerc will take the win from Hamilton second and Bottas third. Nib, who are you going for then? Top three for qualifying in the race. And by the way, before you do yours, in the chat and the comments section, make sure to put yours in the chat or comments, and we'll read out as many as we can for moving on to the Q&A very soon. So yeah, go ahead. What is your top three for quali in the Grand Prix?
Right, so our very, very early Baku predictions, of course, we will change our predictions probably before the race on Sunday, when we, of course, do the race watch-alongs starting an hour before race start on the Sundays. So now my predictions for qualifying. I think it will be Charles Leclerc who takes pole position in Baku. As you mentioned, very good track for him. He was very dominant in F2. Just a couple of days, if not a day, after the sad passing of his father. So I think he will have a very strong result in Baku. In second, I'm gonna go for Valtteri Bottas. He's been quite good around here last year, and of course he probably would have won the Grand Prix if it weren't for some debris being on the main straight after the safety car restart. So I'm going to go for Valtteri Bottas in second place, and he certainly has had a very good start to the season. And then in third, I'm gonna go for Lewis Hamilton. But just in saying that, I think it will be very close between the top teams here. I don't think Vettel will be massively far off Hamilton in fourth place. But yeah, I'm going to go for Hamilton in third. But then winning the Grand Prix, I think, on the Sunday will be Lewis Hamilton. He always finds a way to win. I just absolutely wouldn't be surprised if Hamilton wins. And quite honestly, it is the safe prediction going for a Hamilton win. In second place, I think it will be Leclerc. Sadly, I don't think he will win his first Grand Prix just quite yet. Of course, that could change. When we get to the race, of course, Ferrari do have some upgrades, so they could win the race indeed. And then in third place, I think it's going to go to Valtteri Bottas. He seems to be driving well at the moment and has been pretty solid around this track over the last couple of years. So that is our extremely early predictions. And although you might be thinking that the host is smoking right now, no, it's just very early, and we're making predictions out of our tush tush. So there's nothing much we could we could really say here. We'll have more concrete predictions during the race weekend, of course. Actually, whilst there's been some running on the track.
Absolutely, yeah. This is just based on the first three races and what we've seen so far, really. We haven't seen anything, of course, of practice, and I'm sure it will change based on what will happen. For example, going into Shanghai in the last podcast, I think we predicted Leclerc. Both of us predicted Leclerc to win for Ferrari.
Yep.
And then going into the race, I said that it would be Mercedes 1-2, and so did you. I think the only difference was that I thought Bottas would win and you thought Hamilton would win. So it will, again, based on new information, it will be different, those predictions. But right now, I think, yeah, that's what we're going for. I'm going for Leclerc's first win, and definitely a safe but also very smart prediction for Nib, going Lewis Hamilton to get his third win out of 4 in 2019. But guys, right now in the live chat and the comments, let us know your top 3 for qualifying in the Grand Prix. Mainly the Grand Prix. Right now in the live chat and comments, and I'll read out as many as I can right now. So let me find the top of these predictions if I can. Let me find the first one. Right. Motorsport Tube says Hamilton first, Leclerc second, Bottas third. Tonka Toy Truck says Bottas to win, Leclerc second, Lewis third, Vettel fourth. Curiosity says Hamilton to win from Bottas second, Vettel third, so he's going for Mercedes 1-2. Prussia thinks Bottas to win from Hamilton second, Verstappen third. Simon Cragland says Hamilton to win from Leclerc second, Bottas third. Not many people, going for a Ferrari win. I can understand why. I can definitely understand why, but I just have a feeling with Leclerc's history at this track, I think Leclerc will pull it off. Erudite says Hamilton, Leclerc, then Bottas. Simon Cranklin also says Vettel is not that good in Baku. Yeah, he's not that great in Baku. It's not one of his better tracks, let's put it that way. Shanghai tends to be a good track speed-wise for him. But, yeah, Baku, kind of meh.
Would have won last year if it wasn't for some strategy errors by Ferrari.
Yeah, definitely would have won, I think, last year. Well, and also would have won in 2017 if he didn't do what we saw him do. Gaoan Smith says Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc. Sebastian says Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel. So that's the first person I think that has gone for a Ferrari win. Art MacNev says Verstappen pole to win. I think I've lost. Have I lost the start of these predictions? I think I have. On a limit, there we go. Caleb says Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas. I then think he means Vettel instead of Leclerc. Leclerc can't finish in second and fourth. And then Perez, Raikkonen, Gasly, Stroll, Ricciardo, Giovinazzi. Find some more. Elisa Dubs, Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel. Let me just find. Is there any more? Don't think there is any more. So there you go. Those are all the predictions from you guys in the chat. And again, in the comments, if you're watching this after, make sure to put your predictions, your early predictions for Baku in the comments. And yeah, I'll respond to as many as I can and see what you guys have to say. But before I get onto the Q&A, I haven't told Nib I'm going to do this, but I need to get something off my chest regarding another racing series out there. Because I saw something. And by the way, guys, don't worry, this won't be on the screen very long. This will be gone very soon. I just need to get something off my chest because I saw something so ridiculous during the week. It's something you would expect to see on April Fool's Day. So I'm guessing there's been massive crashes in Formula E. I wouldn't know. I don't watch. But
there was.
Okay, there was then. Was it Rome or something like that? The last race?
Yeah, there was a massive pile-up of about 5 or 6 cars.
Right, okay. And then I saw an Autosport article, and it wasn't an opinion piece. It was more of a quotation of someone else talking about how they could solve, people not crashing. And their, say, solution to people not crashing or to try and stop people with, bad behavior when it comes to crashing, they think, or they want to introduce a yellow card for bad behavior. A yellow card for bad behavior. What next? Is there going to be a crash on the track and then they're going to have to stop the race to go to VAR? It's ridiculous. This is why I do not take Formula E seriously. I take Formula E as seriously as WWE. Not at all. So, if you like Formula E, go ahead. If you like it, then go ahead, watch it, enjoy it as much as you want. But I don't, honestly, I kind of do understand why people watch it, but mostly I don't. Because I see this stuff and I think, how on earth can people watch this crap on a consistent basis? Yes, Formula 1 has gimmicks, but a yellow card for bad behavior. Get out of here. Absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe that was actually... Someone said that, thought that in their brain, said that, and meant it. And it was not on April 1st. I cannot believe someone actually did that. That is unbelievably stupid, whoever said that. I don't know who said it exactly, but I think it was someone maybe within Formula E, or I don't know, someone maybe at the teams. I don't know, but it was not an opinion piece. I must stress this. This wasn't someone, a reporter. But I just have to get that off my chest. I do not see how this can be took seriously. I'm sorry. I don't see it. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. In terms of, and I'll make the reference again, when it comes to wrestling. Formula One is more like Olympic wrestling. Formula E is WWE wrestling. That's the difference for me between Formula One and Formula E. I don't have to explain what I mean by that. I think you guys can understand what I mean. But I think now we'll get rid of that picture and we'll go on to Q&A. So for the next 15 minutes, ask as many questions as you want, and we'll read out as many questions and answer them. And yeah, we'll do that for the next 15 minutes or so. I just want to say though, again, don't forget to subscribe for more podcast episodes. We do podcast episodes every weekend, every Saturday afternoon in the UK time. The weekends in between, or where there's not an F1 Grand Prix. So make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to do that either on the bottom right of the screen or click on my channel name, go to my channel page and subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And also don't forget to like this video and comment down below what you thought of this video. What do you think will happen with all the teams in Baku? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, right now, and also in the comments, even though of course it's not live, because if you're watching this after, it would have already been streamed. If you have a question, don't hesitate to ask it, and I'll get round eventually to answering it in the comments. But yeah, we'll get reading out some comments and see what you guys have to say. Let me find some questions here if I can. There we go. There's the first one. Motorsport Tube. Will Grosjean score a point this season? Yeah, definitely. If he doesn't score a point, he should be dropped from Formula One completely, because yes, the Haas car tyre wear is not good, but it's good enough to score points. Come on, it is good enough to score points for sure. Let me find some more here. Crystal Racing even says Grosjean will score a few points in the Haas. He's not that bad. Yeah, he's not great or very good, but he's not that bad to be that, far off. Getting a points finish. Simon Kragland asks, what did you make of the episode between Magnussen and Hulkenberg in the media pen in Hungary in 2017? I know it's a really random question. It was just, hot, sweaty, guys coming out the cars straight away, right into the media pen. So pumped up with adrenaline, they're frustrated. That's what happens. So, and I thought, it was a good soundbite, and I don't think it should be frowned upon. Because now that's basically his catchphrase, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so it was fine. I think anyone who had a problem with it is very, very soft. Dexter Hall, hey Chaz, I've read somewhere that Ferrari is saying their straight line speed is not much different from Mercedes. Is that true? I think Ferrari is trying their hand at Mercedes' mind games. I think Ferrari have the better straight line speed. Mercedes is still good when it comes to that, but not as good as Ferrari in my opinion. I'll ask Nib this one that I'm about to read out as well. This is from Sebastian. Do you think Red Bull needs to stop getting their drivers from the Red Bull driver program? And he also adds, it's got really stale for them, and Mercedes and Ferrari have got better young talent. This is an interesting point, because I actually did a video about Pierre Gasly on Thursday. By the way, it's in the description down below if you haven't watched it already. And the only two people I mentioned as people who could replace Gasly was Kvyat and Albon, because they're in the program and that's the only people they can really go for. But I will say, looking at the Red Bull driver program, they don't really have anyone that great or very good coming through the program right now. I'm sure that'll definitely change. It definitely will. There'll be a new Vettel, a new Verstappen that will come through in 3 years, and we'll forget about how bad it was in 2019 or 2020. So, yeah, right now, I think Red Bull's driver program is not producing the greatest talent, but eventually it will. But yeah, it's not so great right now. But Niv, when it comes to the driver program at Red Bull, do you think that, say Red Bull don't go out and find that next Max Verstappen or next Sebastian Vettel, do you think the time has to come where Red Bull say, you know what, we're going to have to start employing people from outside the program?
Potentially, although I do think that the drivers will come. That there's always going to be drivers coming through that program, young drivers who are developing. But I must say, probably the best driver program in the sport is Ferrari's. Ferrari have a absolute massive pool of talent in their driver academy. Of course, not just Mick Schumacher. We've got Scott Armstrong. We've got a couple of other young, quick drivers who are in that academy as well. Pietro Fittipaldi as well, or one of the Fittipaldis is in that is in the driver academy as well. So Ferrari have done a really good job at kind of copying and maybe even improving that Red Bull young driver program sort of system that Red Bull started back in the day. But no, I don't think Red Bull should really get rid of it. The last driver that they brought in who wasn't from the program was Mark Webber, and I think they've had some pretty good drivers since then. So no, I don't think there is really a need to ditch it.
Yeah, I think, they've relied on it for so long. There's no point giving up on it now. There'll be plenty more talent to come. Yeah. Right, let's go through some more. I'm going to try and pick out the best ones I can now, because I'm only going to continue the Q&A for another 10 minutes or just over 10 minutes or so. So I'll try to go through as many as I can. The best ones. Erod asks, would you give Bottas a new contract at Mercedes? Let's wait, because we've only had 3 races, and we know in the second half of the season, Bottas drops off. So I think we should wait until the Japanese Grand Prix, around that time at the earliest, to really give a opinion on that. So yeah, I'll wait till then. Niwesh, I think it is, asks, do you think Ferrari will make an aero comeback after Spain? They should do, but I'm not going to say they will, because Ferrari are known to cock it up when it comes to upgrades and also improving their car as the season goes on. They're not the best at that, and they haven't been probably since, say, 2006, something like that. It's been a long time since Ferrari have been a great team when it's come to developing and improving a car, the best out of anyone on the grid. So again, they should, but knowing Ferrari, it may not happen. So we'll see.
Quick note that those upgrades are coming to Baku instead of the Spanish Grand Prix.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. So Baku, if they do improve in the way they want to, then Baku, hopefully for them, should show whether they, have learned what the issues are, whether they can make the improvements going forward. Right, let me find some more in the chat. Just trying to find Astro Stevo. If Kvyat goes to Red Bull to replace Gasly, who will replace him at Toro Rosso? Will it be a straight swap, or would someone else get the Toro Rosso seat? If Gasly gets dropped, he will be going back down to Toro Rosso. I don't think they'd be that harsh to drop him out of Formula 1 completely, because who is there to step into the Toro Rosso anyway? I mean, people say Dan Ticktum, but the guy's never won a championship and is not very good. So I don't think Toro Rosso really, if they do lose one of their drivers to the top team, they're going to have to take Gasly, because they can't just say, right, we'll put Ticktum in the car instead, because Ticktum, I don't think is good enough, and I don't think anyway is mentally or driving wise is ready for Formula 1. He has never again won a championship, and in the Asia F3 series, whatever it's called, struggled and left because he couldn't get enough points to get enough to be in Formula 1. So yeah, it's probably going to be a straight swap. I don't think they'll drop Gasly completely out. There you go. Prussia asks, do you think McLaren should just add downforce to the car whenever there is a Renault power unit upgrade. I think so, because they're straight line speed. Well, this is the thing, and it is kind of obvious, but McLaren aren't in charge of Renault's upgrades to the power unit. That's down to Renault, and that's why it's not that great to be a customer team, because you are not in control of all areas of the car, like Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull kind of now as well, and Renault. You're not in control of all areas of the car. So McLaren, the only thing they can do is just add more downforce and hope that Renault increase the power of their engine. But there you go. Steve, is Latifi in the Red Bull Academy? No, he's not. He's in the... I don't think he is in an academy.
He's a Williams reserve driver.
Yeah, he's a reserve driver, but I don't think he is actually in an academy, and I don't think he ever has been, to be honest. Let me find some more. Wish Wader, if F1 had 3 cars per team, would that benefit or hinder Ferrari's number one driver strategy? It would hinder it for sure if that happened, because if they were leading a race 1, 2, and 3, and the number one driver, the clear number one over the other two, was the third car, could you imagine how ridiculous it would be if we had an Austria 2002, and then you had the 2 leading Ferraris letting the third Ferrari win ahead of the other 2 Ferraris? It'd be ridiculous. Yeah, it would hinder it, but also it'd make them look like idiots if they had, again, like a clear number one and then 2 drivers who were clear number 2s to the clear number one. It sounds confusing as hell, because it is. But yeah, it would be bad. And I hope we never have 3-car teams in Formula 1. I understand why people would love that, but I honestly think it should be kept as it is. I know back in the day, we used to have some teams would run 3 cars at a certain weekend and some wouldn't, and then, so on and so forth. I think the last time that happened was the late 1970s. I think Gilles Villeneuve was a 3rd driver at McLaren once in 77 or 76, something like that. So I hope it doesn't come back, because I just don't think it would be that great, and I think it would be quite confusing to see 3 cars of the same than what it is right now. Right, let me find some more comments here. Crystal Racing asks, and Nib can answer this, do you think Ricciardo will ever race for Ferrari? Do you think he will?
It would be a dream come true for me, and I think for certainly a lot of Italians in Australia, that's for sure, because of course Ricciardo does have Italian blood. Who knows? It could happen, but honestly, I think that after this move to Renault, unless he is super, super impressive in that Renault, I think his stock will drop amongst the top teams, just because he's not up there and he's not going to be getting podiums and race victories. So who knows? It could happen if Vettel continues to makes more mistakes potentially, but I probably don't think so.
If Ricciardo does go to Ferrari, I think also he might be more of a short-term replacement for Vettel, if that does happen, say at the end of 2020 into 2021. So if he does race for Ferrari, it won't be a long-term thing. It might be a similar thing to Raikkonen at Ferrari in his first stint at the team. It might only be at most 3 seasons, maybe even 2. I think you have to consider as well. I mean, how old is Ricciardo now? Is he 30?
29.
29.
And also, can I just say, just quite quickly, to people who are saying that Hülkenberg has shown Ricciardo up, Ricciardo has been in the team for 3 races, and after 3 races is way too early to make any judgment on the drivers. Thank you very much.
Also, people saying that I think are a bit wrong, because Ricciardo has outqualified Hülkenberg twice, I believe. Yeah, twice. I know Hülkenberg had issues in Bahrain in qualifying, but still. And in the races, they've been, equal-ish? at, say, worst for Ricciardo. So I don't really get why people are saying that. Again, as you said, it's way too early. I mean, with Verstappen and Gasly and Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, it's clear to say who the better driver is in that team. But with Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, we're going to have to wait until the earliest, say Silverstone, to really say who's doing better than the other. But after the first 3 races is way too early. But as I was saying with Ricciardo, because he is 29, that's why I think he'd be more of a short-term replacement at Ferrari. Because say if he did drive for them in 2021, he'd be, 31? And then if he raced for them for 3 years, he'd be, 34? And then might be ready to, maybe not retire, but might be close to that point. So, yeah, if Ricciardo ever does race for Ferrari, it's going to be a 2-3 year stint. It won't be a 6 or 7 year stint or anything like that. But now I'll go to the final question. I'll go to the final question of the Q&A, and then we'll come to the end of the stream. And the final question goes to Lisa Dubs, who asks, I like Baku. We had 2 great races the past 2 years. I feel like we've come to expect crazy races, but this year I feel like it will be more like the 2016 one. Do you disagree? Well, this is the thing, and this is kind of like a theory I have on my end, is that if you expect something to happen so much, it ends up not happening. So if you expect the first corner crash to happen, it's not going to happen, because those types of things happen when you least expect it. And with great races, sometimes they're expected to be great and they play into the expectation and live up to it. But some great races are out of nowhere great races. So I see your point. I think we will need crashes and probably a safety car, at least one safety car, to have that chaos and that closeness in the race. But yeah, I see your point. I think we could have a 2016-esque race, but it depends on what happens on the first lap and how things are happening between the midfield and whether there's crashes, debris, stuff like that. We'll see. Of course, next weekend in Baku. But that is the end of the 35th episode of the podcast. And Nib, I just want to say again, despite the issues with Discord, thanks to coming along and previewing the 2019 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And also, he will, just to let you guys know, he will definitely be with us on the race watch along next Sunday, just like he was for the Chinese Grand Prix race watch along last Sunday. So I can't wait to have you on, mate. And yeah, thanks for coming on today.
Indeed, of course, there was some very hastily moments during this podcast.
Oh, it's a terrible one that was.
Yeah, that was really, really bad. I do apologize for that awful attempt of a pun. But yeah, no, of course, thanks for having me on. And of course, I'm very much looking forward to the race, of course, in Baku. As you mentioned, I will be here for the race watch along. And until then, guys, I hope you have a good couple of days and enjoy yourselves. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. And thanks also for the awful pun. It was truly awful, but there you go. But yeah, guys, that is the end of this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe for more podcast episodes. The next one will be in a fortnight's time, where we'll preview the Spanish Grand Prix in a fortnight's time. Again, don't forget to subscribe also for the 2019 Azerbaijan Grand Prix content coming up next weekend. I just want to let you guys know, though, I'm aiming to get 2 videos out between now and next Friday afternoon, because next Friday afternoon I will be doing a practice 2 watch along for the Baku Grand Prix weekend. One of them is basically guaranteed to be a news roundup or news show. The other one, I'm not too sure yet what it will be, but I'm going to try and upload 2 videos between now and next Friday. So the first one will probably come out Monday or Tuesday, and then the next one will probably be, guaranteed to come out on the Thursday. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe for those videos coming out. And thank you guys, by the way, for coming along being a part of the stream, interacting, and posting your comments and doing all that great stuff. But yeah, let me now tell you where else you can go to get notifications for my videos. For example, Discord. Make sure to join the Discord, the best place for notifications of my videos and streams out. And also, that is the hardcore ChazzaHDF1 community. We have about 160 people in that community, and it's quite active, especially on a Grand Prix weekend. So make sure to join that. Also, follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Another great place, rather, to keep up to date with me and what's going on with the channel. And also, check out my website, ChazzaHD.com, for more content like this. Like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below, what do you think will happen in Baku next weekend? Let me know in the comments. And also, if you have a question that you couldn't ask because you couldn't make the stream, then go ahead and ask in the comments, and I'll get round to replying to it as soon as I can. But guys, until the next podcast episode in a fortnight's time, and until the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend for 2019, which will be kicking off on the channel Friday afternoon around, I think, 1:30 PM UK time. It has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.